What's going on, guys? Bart here with Television, and I want to thank all of you for stopping by. Hope today is the day that we earn your subscription. If so, you hit that red subscribe bar down below. Comment, share, and like if you can. And let's get into today's topic, which is a comic book review we're going to be getting into. We're going to be getting into an old school X-Men comic book, so to speak, by the name of Excalibur. Before we get into that, I want all of you to remember how awesome and amazing all of you are. I hope that if today isn't a good day, that you remember that tomorrow will be another fresh start to having a great day. I know sometimes things keep us down, and we may not feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but let me help you along the ways of your days, so to speak. But enough of that. Let's get into this review. Written by Chris Claremont. Alan Davis is the penciler, and Paul Neary and Mark Farmer are the inkers of this particular issue. Now, this series started with this one-shot special entitled Sword is Drawn. Okay, now we do have a couple of characters that weren't normally associated with X-Men comic books too much, in Captain Britain and the character Meggan, but we have Kitty Pryde. I'm sorry, I know how to talk. You know how to talk. We have my favorite character, Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde. We have Rachel Summers, part of the team, and Lockheed, of course, the purple dragon that always accompanies Kitty Pryde throughout her life. And I tell you, that Lockheed is a cute little character, I will admit. But in this particular issue, we pick up the day after the fall of mutants. And that storyline had the world believe that the X-Men team had perished. But what really had happened was that they did perish, but Roma resurrected the X-Men team and put them out, and they started living out in Australia. And a part of the Uncanny X-Men title at that time was following their adventures. So when they were living out in the Australian outback, no one knew they were alive. Not even Nightcrawler, not even Kitty, not even Rachel, alright? I also believe, if I remember correctly, weren't going to show up on film or in any sort of way, whether it's video film, camera, that they were protected in the fact that the world continued to believe that the X-Men team was gone. So that kind of leads into this series, which winds up being a story in which a character known as the Slaymaster goes against Captain Britain and winds up taking him out. You know, like Minecrafts him. He actually kills Captain Britain. There was no cliffhanger and then psych, he isn't really gone. No, the villain won, and we also see the Shadow Master messing with Rachel in her mind. He seems to continuously want to break Rachel down, so to speak. So we see incidences of that in this issue also. Kitty seems to have, they're giving her a more mature setting, or at least leading her to a mature side of her, because while with the X-Men, she joined the X-Men at such a young age that she was always viewed as like a sidekick, or like, so the reason why the real hero had to come in and save the day because someone was messing with her or had her kidnapped or something like that. She no longer was trying to be this damsel in distress. You can tell that this was the beginning of her trying to get an edge or more mature side of her, and I really do like that part of her story progression. In this, we get Kurt, who's always been like the heart and ethics of any group he's been with, whether it's the X-Men, whether it's Excalibur, or even when he had his own team the last few years known as Legion of X. He always wanted to be the one that was unswayed by evil, unswayed by those who wanted to do the wrong thing, the things that are easy to do. It's harder to do the right things, right? And Kurt has always been that voice of reason, that heart to make us not lose our humanity. The demon has more humanity. The demon appearing person has more humanity than a human looking human. I always found that fascinating about Kurt's character. Meggan always had struggled with her self-identity and had always had problems with feeling like she was fitting in. Not only, early on in Excalibur, but throughout the series, she always felt like she was an outsider. And dealing with those themes too, Rachel dealing with her past, which is our future, right? So to speak. Each of these characters had a tremendous weight on them. Captain Britain being the defender of England, where you're not really thinking of England at that time as comic book heroes or teams setting up in the UK, right? Not until this time, really. Yes, we had different international spots like Muir Island and the Savage Land, right? Africa, we'd go to different parts of Africa, Canada, right? We go to these different areas, but it just really seems like we never really had a full-on team that we followed in England. And this is where this team kind of steps up after this adventure to do that. Captain Britain winds up losing his life here, but Roma comes and resurrects Broderick, who's also, if you don't remember, Psylocke's brother, right? Before the whole her and Koana become two separate entities and all that, his sister was Psylocke. So there was a connection to the X-Men in there, I guess, from before, but not really necessarily him. But the point is, Roma comes and resurrects Brian, and when our team saves the day, so to speak, right, after they get a hold of everything that they're fighting and are coming together, they realize, like, maybe this team needs to come together, not because of feeling like they wanted to, but felt like this was the universe calling to them to pick up a mantle, not of the X-Men, so to speak, but of a team that is here to help protect and serve not only England and the UK, but the world and reality. Because as this series starts with issue 1, because again, this is just the special edition we're following at the moment, and then we're going to get into the ongoing series as long as I don't lose interest in it. It is over 120 issues, so to speak. Um, this series felt different than some of the standard X-Men titles you might have gotten back in the time, or the X-Men titles that you may have read over the years. This was a little bit more of a, like, I don't want to say lighthearted adventures, but it definitely had a different style to it, with where they were based at and the characters involved. You definitely had a different dynamic in this X-Men book than you did in, say, X-Force, right? Where that was more of a militaristic team. And I'm not saying this team didn't fight certain things, or certain, big, powerful baddies, but like in the first couple issues of the ongoing series, we have these characters' war wolves that they go after, in which they wear the skin of humans. And so, that's kind of like a crazy story to deal with. And it goes on from there. They go interdimensional hopping and this and that throughout the series. So there is, we can definitely make this a long-lasting playlist, if you will, here at the channel. But I initially wanted to start with this because this is where the team kind of came together, and this was some of the things that made them come together and the motivations of why they felt like they wanted to create the team. It wasn't something that it wasn't like each member of this team was looking to form a team, but because of the victims of circumstance that they were, and the vacuum that was, there was a power vacuum left in which they felt like they needed to take advantage of in order to be a team that can be out there and be relied on, and it gives Nightcrawler, Rachel, and Kitty an opportunity to show what they learned in the X-Men without necessarily being on an X-Men team, and seeing where that can lead them with their interactions with Captain Britain and Meggan. And if I'm pronouncing that character's name wrong, let me know down below. I'm going based off of how the two G's are in her name. She's also an empath, which I find to be pretty cool. But that's where we were at with this particular issue. It was some stuff going on with Captain Britain, and then like victims of circumstances of our team members coming together and working together in order to realize that maybe that this team needs to be formed in order to step up to the plate and protect the people that they love, the world that they love, and see how that goes. This series was very, in my opinion, successful for sure. It lasted 10 years, one of the longest running spin-offs again in the X-Men franchise. That's where we're at. Let me know down below what you think of this issue, if you've read it, or what you think of the story. And here's to the Excalibur path, so to speak, on the channel, and see how that goes for us. But until next time, peace, Snookums.